We found cartoon characters that share exactly how you're feeling. Stick until the end to see which characters dislike school the most.
Hey guys, check out our new member of the family, Toy Hub. Toy Hub is the ultimate place for kids to get their daily dose of crunchy slime, squishy slime, sticky slime, Play-Doh, color learning, and so much more. We have lots of fun with the most awesome toys and amazing stories for kids. Make sure to show it to all the kids in your family, and while you're there, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button at Toy Hub. It's playtime!
Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe. Sharpen your pencils because today we're checking out 10 cartoons that perfectly sum up back to school. SpongeBob SquarePants. Who lives in the pineapple under the sea? SpongeBob SquarePants. You know we have to mention one of our favorite characters whose school antics seem to perfectly sum up exactly what everyone feels when they think about going back to school. Although SpongeBob seems to love school, the school doesn't seem to love him. He's constantly getting in trouble, and he definitely gives us those back to school feels. On the other hand, SpongeBob also shows us what it's like to be an adult with his to-do list. One of our favorite school scenes from SpongeBob is the time he draws a perfect circle, but in a true SpongeBob fashion. He seems to be drawing it backward. The internet turned it into a hilarious meme. Speaking of SpongeBob SquarePants, here are some facts for you so you can get an A on the next SpongeBob trivia quiz. Did you know that Patrick and Gary the Snail are actually first cousins? Their relation was confirmed by Patrick's family tree, which, quite frankly, is just super confusing. Here's another one for you. Mr. Krabs was born in 1942. You can find his details on his driving license. And probably one of the most important SpongeBob facts is that Steven Hillenburg, the creator of the show, is actually a marine biologist. He first created a comic book for his young students to help them envision what happens under the sea, and a lot of the scenes acted as a basis for the show. If you need a cartoon to cheer you up before you head back to school, SpongeBob is a good choice. South Park. When it comes to a back-to-school mood, South Park is the show you absolutely have to watch. South Park has a way to pretty much capture all of our moods, but seeing those characters in school is something every one of us can relate to. One of our favorite school scenes from South Park is when Cartman runs for student body president and then learns it's a position without any power. Cartman has raged against the school several times, and there are plenty of more moments where we were able to identify with exactly what he's feeling. He's really not holding back, is he? Let us know your favorite Cartman moment in the comments. Here's some South Park trivia for you. Kyle's out-of-control hair was actually modeled by the co-creator of the show, Matt Stone. Do you remember Terrence and Phillip? We always wondered why their characters looked so simple, and here's an explanation. They were a direct response to those who criticized the show for being nothing other than bad animation. The show really knows how to stick it to the man and get away with it, doesn't it? They even hold a Guinness record for most swearing in an animated series. South Park can definitely identify with your back-to-school mood. Gravity Falls. Gravity Falls is definitely a must-watch before you head back to school. The story of a fictional town where mystery seems to lie around every corner is captivating, but it's the quirky and relatable characters that really make this show what it is. If there's a character you'll be able to relate to, it's definitely Wendy. Although she's fairly laid back, Wendy absolutely dislikes high school. And in one of our favorite scenes, she tells Mabel high school is not what it looks like on TV. We've all wished for our school to burst out in song like High School Musical, but the truth is that just doesn't happen, and Wendy knows it. This scene with Stan also perfectly sums up two types of students. As much as we'd love to be the Stan on the left, we're probably the Stan on the right. Alex Hirsch, the director of Gravity Falls, gave some very interesting trivia answers. After season 1, Gravity Falls was supposed to go on an 8-month hiatus, but Alex managed to negotiate it down to just 4 months. Maybelle's awesome sweaters are actually based on Alex's twin sister's sweaters. Alex also said he was surprised the fans of the show liked Pacifica, as she was meant to be portrayed as a horrible character. A lot of the characters are actually based on real-life people. We bet everyone would like to have a character like Wendy in their school. The Powerpuff Girls. Sugar and spice and everything nice. Let's talk about some old school Cartoon Network shows. Powerpuff Girls were iconic and are definitely a beloved series to this day. The story follows 3 little girls that were created in a lab. They all got superpowers, but they also lead normal lives like going to school. In this scene, the girls pretty much sum up the best part about being in school. Hands up if you love lunch. And here they are, looking pretty much like we all look after the first day of being back in school. It looks like it's really hard being a superhero in school. Remember this scene where they get reminded that they need to ask for permission before they can leave to save the world? They seem to have a love-hate relationship with their teacher. In 2016, Powerpuff Girls got a reboot, directed by Bob Boyle. The new show expands on the girls' personalities, and if you haven't seen it yet, it's definitely a must-watch before you head back to school. Did you know that Elizabeth Daily, who plays the original Buttercup, appeared on the US version of The Voice? The cast of the Powerpuff Girls can definitely tell you all about following your dreams and sticking it out through school. Hey Arnold! Speaking of old school classics, there's nothing like watching Hey Arnold right before you head back to school. Arnold's face perfectly sums up what most of us feel like when we're stuck in a boring class and we're just counting down the minutes for the bell to ring. It looks like all students in Hey Arnold feel the same about school, and you can't really blame them. And if you're not Arnold, we bet you can relate to Helga and her self-love. If you're a Hey Arnold fan, here's some trivia for you that you might not know. The show was ahead of its time when it was on the air. It featured LGBT characters, and it probably had one of the most racially diverse cast ever. And it all started when short clips of the show first aired during Sesame Street. The animations look completely different from the show you know today. Hey Arnold is also the first show that actually used kid voice actors. Even Powerpuff Girls never crossed that line. Speaking of Arnold, do you know his last name was never actually revealed on the show? The secret came out in 2016 by the creator himself. Arnold's last name is Shortman. The show is definitely worth to be watched before you head back to school. Teen Titans Go! Our channel mentioned Teen Titans Go several times, and we're definitely huge fans of the show. Their Hey You, Don't Forget About Me in Your Memory episode can definitely relate to all fans, as Robin tries to convince the rest of the group to go back to school. Robin bribes them by saying he'll buy them new clothes, and of course, it works. They're all excited, and Starfire even talks about it being the beginning of a meaningful life experience. But then, Robin puts a label on everyone. The jock, in this case Cyborg, can't hang out with Beast Boy, and so on, so on. It's the classic representation of what actually happens in school, and the scene really does perfectly sum up a student's experience. The cast of Teen Titans Go described the show as apples to oranges when compared to the original Teen Titans. They all agree that the show is fun, and it's nice to have quirky superheroes that were made for children. When it comes to the show, the cast also admitted they improvise a lot, which is exactly why we're able to identify ourselves so much with the characters. They're all just crazy like most of us are. We do recommend watching the episode that talks about labels and social norms, as a reminder that you don't have to stick to the status quo. The Simpsons. Speaking of old school, who can forget about the record-breaking show that remains one of the most popular cartoons out there? The Simpsons is absolutely iconic, and no matter how old you are, you're able to identify with the show and enjoy its storyline. We particularly love how Bart experiences school, and we're pretty sure his scenes perfectly sum up some of your school moods. From his messages on the blackboard during detention to him being absolutely bored during class, Bart really sums up how most of us feel about being back to school. Speaking of The Simpsons, did you know that the characters are yellow just because they grab the attention of people who are just flicking through the TV channels? They definitely managed to grab their attention. Conan O'Brien wrote for a couple of The Simpsons episodes, like Marge versus the Monorail, before he became a talk show host. Another interesting fact is that Bart's voice actually belongs to Nancy Cartwright, who also voices Nelson and Ralph. We do hope that none of you had to write as many sentences as Bart did during his detention. There are many chalkboard gags out there, but our favorite is, "My butt does not deserve a website." Were your detentions harsher than Bart's? Ed, Edd, and Eddy. Speaking of old school, it doesn't get any better than rewatching Ed, Edd, and Eddy before you re-enter the school world. This Cartoon Network classic is just so silly and witty it'll lighten up your spirits. The show definitely highlights some back-to-school moods that just really sum up the experience in a nutshell. From school bus rides and classroom boredom, all the way to not enjoying PE, Ed, Edd, and Eddy highlight just about every mood you'll end up experiencing at school. Ed, Edd, and Eddy is such an interesting show. It has way more fan theories than it does have facts. Have you ever noticed that all of their tongues are actually blue? There's a theory floating around that Ed, Edd, and Eddy aren't actually alive. The fans also wonder what's actually underneath Ed's hat, since it's never really revealed. Some are guessing he's bald, but many suspect that his haircut is actually so bad, it's best that it's not revealed. And did you know that the creator of the show also worked on a couple of other series for Hanna-Barbera, a studio that's responsible for iconic shows like Scooby-Doo, The Flintstones, and The Jetsons? No wonder Ed, Edd, and Eddy was so successful. But we do have to ask one question. When do these kids actually go to school? The Fairly OddParents. One of our favorite shows on this list is without a doubt The Fairly OddParents. The show is so popular, it even managed to cross over with the very last cartoon on our list. We absolutely love following the adventures of Timmy Turner and his fairy godparents. The show features some of the most quirky characters out there, but what we loved the most was seeing those characters in school. This picture of Timmy in a classroom pretty much sums up most of our moods when we think about going back to school. He's really not having it, is he? We all also know at least one person in our class who always brags about their A's. Did you know that the show was originally called The Fairy Godparents? Wanda's name was Venus, and she looked totally different from the Wanda we know. And Mr. Crocker, the elementary school teacher, was inspired by Eugene Levy's role in the movie Splash. But did you know that he wasn't originally meant to be on this show and was created for another cartoon? Imagine the show without Mr. Crocker. We bet you have a few crazy teachers like that in your school, but we hope they're not as mean as Mr. Crocker. The Loud House. When it comes to favorite shows, you can't deny that The Loud House stole the limelight of all modern cartoons. We've previously shown you what the Loud House characters would look like in different situations, but what we also love is whenever these characters are in school. This scene with unimpressed Luann is pretty much all of us, as is the face Lenny makes while on her way to school so early in the morning. We definitely recommend The Loud House as the prep to your back to school. Speaking of the show, did you know that the characters were originally supposed to be rabbits? This is why some of them feature buck teeth and why Lincoln is the only one with white hair. We're so glad they became humans, so we're able to see their interactions in school. All of the Loud House characters are also based on the creator's actual large family, which consists of 10 children. His sister's names actually made it on the show, and some characters are even named after their dogs. We can thank Nickelodeon's Jenna Boyd for pulling Chris Savino aside after their meeting and telling him to turn the characters human. We can't wait to see what the characters will do in future episodes, and we definitely expect more back-to-school moments. And that's it for 10 cartoons that perfectly sum up back to school. Make sure